Hi, welcome to New Hampshire Politics and Policy. I am State Senator Cindy Rosenwald from Nashua, and you're watching us on Nashua Public Television. This is the show where we talk about all things political from a Democratic perspective. And my guest right now is State Rep candidate Carrie Spier from Ward 3. She's my neighbor. I've met her in the neighborhood over a number of years, and she is now running for the State House. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's a beautiful day today for canvassing.
Yes, well, I'm sure you'll be out knocking doors later, and maybe you already have been.
No, it'll be this afternoon.
And it's going to be hot.
Yeah, it has been a lot lately.
Well, so this is your first time running for office, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But you've been involved politically for a long, long time.
I have, and it's been an evolutionary process as far as how much I've been involved. Mm-hmm. But I retired from work just when they started the COVID shutdown. And, you know, we were all sitting at home trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. So what I decided to do was start doing some research. And that's when I got very deeply involved. And the result of that is my desire to run for office.
So what kind of research were you doing?
I looked at all the bills that had passed and all the bills that were proposed over the past, I want to say, 4 years.
Oh, wow, that's thousands of bills.
Yes, it was. I didn't hit every single one, I admit that. Mm-hmm. But I hit all the ones that seemed to touch on things that either take away or add to our life.
Okay.
And I was very, very disappointed to find out that this great and famous live free state that I came to love over the 25 years that I've lived here is getting a lot less free. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was time for me to do something about that.
So you've lived here a long time.
25, right?
Yeah. I've lived in Nashua 34 years.
Oh, you got me
Same
beat.
house. So we're long time in the neighborhood, long time in Ward 3. And I know that you are a dog owner or were, and so you're out walking a dog a lot,
Right.
and you get to meet a lot of people that way.
Certainly do.
What were some of the issues that you are really passionate about and that you would want to help make policy on when you're elected?
One of the things that I found happening was that people, like LGBTQ people, were getting marginalized. Laws that, in a state that prided itself on being free, laws were being passed to kind of curtail their rights. Mm. Laws are being passed that don't allow teachers to teach subjects that relate to the real world. Our children need to know what's happening in the real world. Goodness knows they're getting it from TikTok. Mm-hmm. So they might as well get it from a teacher who actually knows what's going on. And anybody who thinks there is not a gender inequality problem, I can talk from personal experience that there certainly is.
Did you feel that in the workforce?
I did up until I came here. Uh-huh. It's interesting. Some of the companies I worked at early on, and I was an engineer for 53 years, so early on, it was brutal for women. Mm. I mean, I've been through layoffs. I have never been laid off, but I have been through layoffs where every woman in the place was laid off. I've been involved with unions where they said where salaries were set, but that the women's salaries had to be lower than the men's salaries.
By design.
By design. By absolute requirement. When Grumman lost, I used to work for Grumman Aerospace, when they lost the space shuttle program, they laid off every woman PhD they had. It hasn't been an easy road, especially in military aerospace. It came to BAE, and it was a lot better. Mm-hmm. But BAE has its issues now as well. I won't say that they're in that area necessarily at all. They're more or less in the area of people running the business who are not as familiar or family-oriented as we used to be. Mm-hmm. But that's a bigger international company now, too. And it's run with some British influence. Mm-hmm. Which is, I guess it's okay, and everybody's struggling these days trying to make ends meet, and, they got hit hard with COVID. So I suppose that they have some financial issues. But I would say that BAE was the first place I've worked at where I didn't run into the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear.
Actually, it is. But now I'm seeing, we have the first ban against abortion that we've ever had in this state. Women are no longer allowed to work with their doctor to work on their pregnancy issues. And there are all, throughout the entire term of a pregnancy, there's all kinds of issues that can happen. Mm-hmm. She can't work on those alone with her doctor. She has to go get permission from the law establishment, from the court establishment. That's, I don't even know how to tell you how that makes me feel marginalized as a woman. Mm-hmm. I think what's happening to our schools, the fact that there are forces afoot that want to defund our public schools. And I'm a public school kid. I grew up in the public school system. And to find out that the way New Hampshire funds its public schools and the taxes that result from that are absolutely appalling and among the worst in the country. Mm-hmm. We have the only university in the country, New Hampshire, Southern, let me get that name right, New Hampshire University, I guess the University of New Hampshire, mm-hmm. UNH, that is not subsidized by the state.
Very little.
Yeah. New York has its state schools. Alabama has a state school. And if we can imagine being worse than Alabama.
Has great state school.
But we don't have.
We have very little. I think it's about 7 or 8% of the university budget comes from the state.
That's pretty low.
It is pretty low, and employers need an educated workforce to succeed here and locate their businesses here. It's a really important recruitment tool. Is how are your public schools and how are your secondary, post-secondary education institutions?
It's kind of sad that a student from New Hampshire graduates with some of the highest loan debt in the country. Mm-hmm. That means that he literally that person, man or woman, may have to leave the state in order to get a job commensurate to make enough money to pay that loan off. And my understanding is that 30% of graduating students leave the state. And that's at the high school level. 30% don't even want to live here.
I think it might even be higher than that.
You think so?
It is high, and a lot of them then never come back. So I know you're knocking on a lot of doors. What kinds of things are you hearing from your neighbors in Ward 3?
One of the things that I hear, and something that, because of my engineering background, that I care about a lot, is the cost of energy. Mm-hmm. We've been told we're going to get hit with a 100% rate increase in electricity. New Hampshire generates a staggering amount of wind power upstate, but it's all sold to Vermont and to Maine. We don't get the benefit of any of it down here. Mm. And we don't get that benefit because we don't have an infrastructure that can support it. Decisions were made some years back that they were not going to update the infrastructure, and the reason is the fossil fuel companies and Eversource has a pretty strong lobby, and they pretty much stopped it from happening. I want to work on that energy problem. I think we are generating the energy, and we have opportunities to generate more. We have a $400 million surplus in this state. Some of that could be used to invest in ways to get that electricity down here. And I think it's very short-sighted to think we're not going to do that.
So energy is something we're all hearing a lot about because the Public Utilities Commission, which the members were all appointed by Governor Chris Sununu, got a rate, they approved a rate increase that is really high. I got my energy bill for August yesterday, and it was at least 50% higher than normal. And I don't use that much electricity. I don't have air conditioning all through my house. I have a little window unit in my bedroom, which most of the time I don't even use. But my electric bill is probably 50% higher for August. I can't even think what it's going to be like in the winter when it's dark and I've got lights on more. And I think it's going to be really hard for New Hampshire families. So definitely investing in more renewable energy would really be helpful. Yeah. And the governor has also been quite opposed to expansion of solar.
He has. But as I say, it's been because a lot of his campaign is funded by Eversource. Mm. And that's very unfortunate that we're also plagued, besides some very, very far right-wing organizations, am I allowed to say that? Right-wing people that want to effectively defund government and defund public schools.
Are you talking about the Free State Project?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yes, the Free Staters. And more right-wing religious people that seem to want to have everybody go to religious schools. And I've seen that in my neighborhood, and it's kind of unfortunate. But getting back to the solar, what's happening is that we're being plagued by these special interest groups. And Sununu is very much in line with the fossil fuel and Eversource funding that he gets for his campaign. I mean, he does what they ask him to do.
So would you want to serve on the Science, Technology, and Energy
Absolutely
Committee?
Want to. That's my number one.
That
one in school.
I used to tell the Democratic leader that if he ever assigned me to that committee, I would quit the legislature because I don't understand. I don't understand energy issues very well. Someday, my goal is to understand transmission versus generation.
Oh.
Well,
you don't want me to explain that now, do you?
No, we don't have time now. I can talk about Medicaid rates all day long. Most people would fall over with a big yawn. But I think, my hat's off to people who do take on the complicated issue of energy, and it really is complicated. And there are a few people in the House and the Senate that really have a good understanding.
I've heard some of them. They make it sound very interesting to join it. At least interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the people who are drawn to it are really drawn to it. And the rest of us are like, okay, just
I guess we're very lucky that we have some people that are interested in everything.
And that's what you get with a very big House of Representatives, right?
Right.
Because you have a diversity of people's interests. And I think that's really great that a lot of states don't have.
Right.
And in the House, legislators serve on one committee, so you really can be an expert. We're about to run out of time. So if our viewers want to know more about you, how do they contact you?
Well, I have a website, and it's called Nashua Ward 3 Dems.com. And I have another website which will lead you to that first website, which is carriespier.com. Those are the two places that would be best. Email would be Carrie, CARRY.SPIER@hotmail.com.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here today.
It was a pleasure.
I'm confident that you'll be making great energy policy for the state, and you can tell me all about it. This has been New Hampshire Politics and Policy. Thanks for joining us.